Well, I guess we're back for recollection number something. I don't remember now. But all of this lack of having church has made me remember things a little bit different. I said last week that we have an excellent singing congregation, and we do. The longer we're away from it, the more I'm aware of how well our congregation sings. And as I said, that is very much because of George, the way he plays. George has a very good vocal understanding that at the end of a line, a singer needs a breath or a way to phrase just a little bit. Not all organists get that, but ours does, and as a result, we sing quite well. Which in turn made me just kind of go back and think about congregational singing, I guess, in its origin. You know, it's funny, the church has sung for a long time. If you look in Psalms, there will be certain things listed under the Psalms that says, for the song leader or for the song director. In the early church, in the New Testament, we've got Song of Mary or Song of Zechariah. And yet he kind of got me to thinking, here we are in the 21st century, and a lot of churches don't do what we do. In a lot of churches, they've kind of gone away from the use of hymnals. And we'll get to that in a minute. But they've gone away from the use of hymnals. They use projectors and PowerPoints. And truthfully, that's not what we do at St. Barnabas. It's not what we've done. And to be honest with you, that's not going to be where we go because of the pandemic that we're going through right now. There might be a time that we don't have a hymnal in the pews, but that's more for health reasons than it is changing the direction of what we want to do. We're just trying to be observant. But a lot of churches in general have gone away from congregational singing and using hymns as such. But as happens in almost any profession, a lot of the things that we have in the church came as a result of controversy. One of my favorite lines from Martin Luther, and we'll get to him in a couple of weeks, but one of my favorite lines is, there's no reason that the devil ought to have all of the good tunes. Now that's a paraphrase, but it's pretty darn close. So he was open to using all kinds of tunes and putting different texts with them. But originally, everything that was written for the early church was basically based upon the life of Christ, the experiences of Christ, and it was either Jesus Christ centered or Holy Spirit centered. And there are a lot of places where it talks about singing and gathering, but it doesn't really use the word congregation. That's kind of a new thing. Last 300 years, I'll go with that. But the church congregational singing is an element of our church that I don't see going away. I don't see it disappearing. It will not disappear in St. Barnabas. We may have to stifle it for a little while, again, for health reasons. But the existence of it, it's not going to change. And I'll get into more of this because there's some interesting stories. As it turns out, a lot of the music that we sing, the music was written by one person and the text was written by another one. Somebody comes along and does that. Well, for example, Christ whose glory fills the skies. All right, that's one of our hymns for this Sunday. The tune goes back into the 18th century, and a guy named Werner did an adaptation of it. The text actually comes from Charles Wesley. And the Wesley brothers are really well known for creating a very large presence on the Methodist Church. And I learned just recently the brothers did not have the same viewpoint of that. John, the pastor, the preacher, the evangelist, was moving in the Methodist separatist direction pretty aggressively. Charles made an Anglican to his dying days. In fact, he disapproved of the word Methodist or separatist. But he wrote the text, "For Christ whose glory fills the skies." Our second hymn is one that also comes from kind of a split presentation. The music itself it comes from was written some time back, but the text is much more pertinent. The text, "To Christ is Alive," was written just a few days before Easter, the year that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And they were written in response to a feeling of depression across the nation, to a feeling of such a national sadness that it was an expression of hope, an expression of we have something that we can rely on and fall back on, and became a very, very popular hymn with the text that was written in 1968. We got a lot of stuff to work on this hymn stuff. See you next time.